Here we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of another Dolphins podcast. The franchise tag deadline has come and gone, and we are less than a week away from the 2024 NFL season kicking off. I'm going to do the football pun. We're going to ride into it. Joshua, how are you doing today?
Much better now that you brought that up. I mean, it's dreary outside. We got the kids at playground a few days ago, so they can't go out there and play. They're inside, crappy weather. But hearing you say that, man, NFL season's starting. We already see some of these moves and the dominoes starting to fall. So, you get so sad when the season ends, and then you quickly remember how fast the next year starts. So, I'm intrigued to see what happens, and glad to be back talking Dolphins football with you, Jake. How have you been? We're midweek, man. How has your week started? How's it going?
God, you really do make an excellent point about how quickly the season just kind of continues to go here with the franchise tag deadline. The draft is a month away. I'm doing well, man. I'm in a weird spot where we don't really. Did you ever have a high school reunion? Did you have someone who at least tried to coordinate high school reunions?
I'm not sure if they did. I made sure I didn't go to that. So I'm sure somebody did. I feel bad now. They probably sent me a letter or something.
So we don't have someone who coordinated a 5 and even a 10 at this point, which is kind of spooky when you listen to my voice and realize I've been out of high school for 10 years. But I got an invite the other night. I think the high school reunion might be happening on Rocket League, because it's turning into like this pickup basketball game where it's like the community CYC is just turning into my entire high school of just everyone jumping onto this game. So we got some pickup games going on, and that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, man, I'll have to get back to you, let you know how a Rocket League version of a high school reunion goes. But that also brings me to a big point that we still need to play Rocket League. I have some friend requests from some listeners of the show that are ready to play, Josh. So, I mean, when is this going to go down? Maybe, we're talking about how the season kind of goes fairly quickly into the off season and the new league year. This might be our June, July content.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's what you're getting ready to say. You're going to give me crap for not downloading it. I mean, I used to love Rocket League. That was the one game I intently played when it first came out. Thought it was the greatest thing when it first dropped, and I need to get back into that. So I think that's fascinating. You guys are sitting there kind of doing your school reunion, and we will definitely play with our listeners. I do think that's the perfect time when we have that lag between the early mini camps, rookie mini camps, and there's just that long lag where you just want nothing more than football. That'd be awesome to sit there and hop on and play some Rocket League. So I'll download it over the next few months, and we will definitely be playing later this year.
So Rocket League's such a great, fun, competitive game. NCAA's been announced. Madden, breaking news, is going to come out like it does every year. Josh, what can you say about the upcoming releases for some video games? Is there any specific part of them you're jazzed about? Being someone who's, I won't give you too much credit and call you an insider or anything, but I'll say you're pretty tapped into what's going on here.
Yeah, right for Operation Sports, so I know a little bit about the sports gaming world. I actually am just finishing up my review on WWE 2K24, so if you like wrestling, that's definitely worth going after. But I think it's fascinating the way they're doing this thing, and I'm intrigued to see what happens with NCAA, because I just am so fearful they're just going to follow Madden in their footsteps. Pretty much just bring that game over, change the rosters around. But you can hear with the way they're getting these different commentators involved. Sounds like they might even have the Senior Bowl involved in it. So it sounds like they're doing NCAA the right way. So I'm stoked for that. And Madden every year they sucker me in because we're diehard Dolphin fans. But other than that, man, I'm down for some Rocket League for sure.
So the news of the week, or at least the news to start the week, is that the Miami Dolphins did not use the franchise tag on Christian Wilkins, the foundational piece. This is the guy that the entire rebuild was built on. Obviously, it hasn't really come to complete. It hasn't reached the pinnacle because they haven't won a playoff game yet. But I mean, Josh, over the last 3 years, the Miami Dolphins have been one of the most established franchises. They've actually have one of the better winning records, which after years of seeing how, if you look at 5 years, they were 8-8 over that time. And then if you look at the last 10 years, they were 500 over that time. I remember Armando Salguero wrote a post for the Miami Herald, just breaking down about how this team was completely just stuck in that 8-8 zone. But they broke that. And Christian Wilkins was a big part of that. So were you surprised to see that the Dolphins are going to let him test free agency?
Well, first, let's just thank the NFL for getting us out of that 8-8 hell, right? I mean, they added that extra game, so they made it so we couldn't. They made it so we couldn't do that. But I mean, I guess it was bittersweet, right? I mean, we all wanted Christian Wilkins to come back for the type of player he is. We see him every year get better, but deep down inside, I mean, I think this is something we all foresaw, right? I mean, you and I did podcasts, I think a year prematurely about who we should stick around, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins. And at the time, I think we both said Zach Sealer because he'd be cheaper and he's still a very, very good player. So, yeah, so I'm really not surprised that Christian Wilkins is going. I do think it's nice the way the Dolphins are letting this play about, right? He thinks he deserves top money. Go out there and prove that you have a suitor that wants to pay you that. And then we can come back to the negotiating table. So I want to know if a team in free agency is going to pay him what he wants, because if not, it sounds like the Dolphins, I think you wrote it for the Finsider, left the key under the mat, so to speak. Maybe that was for X, though. That could have been for any of these guys they released.
What I think has been interesting about this year specifically is that the Miami Dolphins have had to say farewell to a couple of foundational pieces. Xavier Howard last week. The Christian Wilkins thing is still up in the air, and we're going to continue to talk about that. And we will be back tomorrow to talk about things like the Miami Dolphins releasing Jerome Baker after 6 seasons in Miami. So it's kind of a very awkward offseason as a fan of the Miami Dolphins. But I'm very intrigued by the comments of every single one of them. It's the conversation isn't over. They aren't, this isn't a breakup. Like, there's a real world where Christian Wilkins could be back with the Miami Dolphins. And the franchise tag deadline kind of was a fun deadline because that's when a lot of the other websites, the SB Nations, the Sports Illustrated, really got their content creators going to talk about Christian Wilkins specifically. Like, there's that first month leading up to free agency where everyone's so excited about the top of the class. And then, the franchise tag deadline comes and goes. All of a sudden, 10 players, 10 of the top tier free agents are instantly wiped off the board. And I think there were 9 players free agent turned to the franchise tag this year. God, that was a mess. I apologize. But what I'm doing is I'm reading about Christian Wilkins talking on a Colts website here. And they're talking about Christian Wilkins making a whopping $20 million per year. And that right there, Ben, brings me all the way back, and it makes me chuckle because I think there is still a gap that, everyone's saying, oh, how are the Dolphins letting Christian Wilkins go? How are they letting him test free agency? Well, everyone is still under the impression that it's going to cost about $20 to $21 million a year to keep someone like Christian Wilkins. That'd be the case if it was the franchise tag. He wants to reset the market. He has seen what has happened to 3-4 other defensive tackles in his own draft class around the league with the Giants and the Jets. He needs to see what else is out there in order to kind of really pin down his value. And after 5 seasons in Miami, playing on that rookie deal, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, you do have to give him credit because it does sound like the Dolphins had a fair offer on the table before the start of the season. He basically, bet on himself. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to record the sacks like we joke and things like that. So, Christian Wilkins continues to ball out. I believe is he 28 now? I should have it written down. I have he's getting up there in age, but this is a player, like you mentioned, man, he's been here for so many years. You did not want to see him leave at this point. But when the Dolphins have so many different moves they have to make, I mean, you got to make these tough decisions. So I'm hoping that Christian Wilkins goes out there and, gets humbled a little bit, maybe doesn't get that Chris Jones type money or whatever it is that he's seeking. But we do got to mention this is probably one of the best players the Dolphins have lost to free agency in quite some time. I mean, you go to any of the little, top 100 free agents, top whatever, you see Christian Wilkins. I think he's like top 5 in most of those. And that was before the franchise tags dropped. So stud player, interested to see if these teams are going to pay him that. But if not, I'd love to have him back, right? If we could find a way, and that's kind of where we sat here and still had hope, right? That the Dolphins would find a way, that the salary cap would be fake. They find a way to franchise tag him or a long-term deal, whatever it might be. Didn't happen. Now we'll see what happens. I mean, we're already seeing rumors, right? Houston Texans and Christian Wilkins have interest in each other, this, that, and the other thing. We're a week out, man. There's going to be so much smoke and mirrors to go through. But if at the end of the day it leads to Christian Wilkins back to Miami, that's awesome. Either way, Dolphins need a defensive tackle. Let's be honest, Jake.
28 years old. I think the most impressive part of Christian Wilkins' skill set is just his availability. He doesn't miss time. He plays 90+% of snaps. He is just that piece on the defense you just always know that's going to be there. He had 9 sacks in 2023. That was a new career high. Obviously, that's something you definitely want to do right before you're about to get paid. Josh, I was looking at a couple of the advanced analytic guys there on X, really digging into what Christian Wilkins' impact could be. And someone was kind of trying to break it down of when's the last time we've seen a defensive tackle this dominant reach free agency? Ndamukong Suh was the name that came out to a lot of people. And I don't know if you all remember this, but he ended up signing with the Miami Dolphins. So, Josh, lessons learned. We've been doing this for so long. We might have even wrote about this for Cover 32. When I say that, what kind of goes through your head about where we're at with Christian Wilkins, knowing that there is still this opportunity for him to come back? Miami's main goal is they just need that first year cap hit to be very small. I mean, they cannot have a $20 million cap hit from Christian Wilkins this year. What's going through your mind?
First, I'm just sitting here like almost dumbfounded by that comparison and thinking, like, was he just a politer version of, he
Was
still
he
has that
polite though?
I
Bills
he's
fans,
kinda
man. Bills fans will not
no,
say anything
and he
nice
does
about
tug a
Christian.
Josh he does pull a Josh Allen's thing, but the point is, I mean, he's still a happy guy, and it just seems like Ndamukong Suh is out there trying to hurt people. Christian Wilkins is, kind of being a little bit more fun, but, man, that's an interesting comparison, and it does make you wonder. You don't have the Suh contract up or remember it off the top of your head, right? Because he got paid insane amount of money, and I know I guess nowadays you probably can't even compare the two, but, yeah, man, I think that he is a difference maker in our defense, and again, I don't know how good Zach Steeler going to be without Christian Wilkins next to him, right? I mean, I would much rather see this whole defense stick together. But again, before the season ended, we all knew it was coming.
Suh signed a 6-year, $114 million contract with the Miami Dolphins, $25 million signing bonus, $60 million guaranteed, and an annual average salary of $19 million.
So it is close. So that was 19, 20. Oh, dude. I mean, I thought that with the difference in times, like maybe we overpaid based on today's salary, but it sounds like the market really hasn't changed that much. So are you going to give Christian Wilkins an Ndamukong Suh type contract, Jake?
You have Zach
right?
Steeler under contract making $11 million. I understand that they play next to each other. I don't like using that as a conversational piece one way or another of, yes, let's keep Christian Wilkins because we have Zach Steeler, or this way or that way. I don't think that's really fair to either of them. I think you do it, man. I think the way the Dolphins really let this thing fall apart is by choosing to. Go back to the end of the 2018 season, the last year of the Adam Gase saga. That was a defeated team. That was a defeated Stephen Ross, who knew top from bottom, Ryan Tannehill isn't the guy. We can't have a defense built around Ndamukong Suh. Why did we give Andre Branch another 3-year contract? So the Dolphins enter the 2019 season with the highest dead cap hit. The only reason they did that is because they decided it was time to break it down. And it was obvious they were tanking. They lost draft picks because they were tanking. They could have kept Suh. They had it in place. The contract wasn't completely crippling the franchise. I think you do it, man. I think what's going to happen here in the next week is we're going to see a situation because there's that tampering window. I think it's on Monday you can start talking with the other teams, and then by Wednesday you have to make a deal. I think Wilkins is going to go out there, and I think he's going to get some awesome, opportunities. The Texans, $80 million in cap space. The Colts, $80 million in cap space. The Patriots, $80 million in cap space. A lot of situations that can happen here. I just wonder, man. It happened with Emmanuel Ogbah 2 years ago. He signed in that window. I think he signed the day free agency was quote unquote officially ready to open. I wonder if this is going to be something where the Dolphins or the players on the Dolphins have seen that Chris Grier is willing to go above and beyond and keep guys around, maybe overpay. Maybe they're going to see and hope that Grier gets a little gun shy that, that Tuesday or Wednesday right before free agency officially opens and does the difference of maybe $2-3 million that they haven't been able to settle on.
Yeah, I mean, the closer we get, I mean, maybe they get a little bit, they do end up jumping. I'm intrigued to see the way it all unfolds and a little bit worried because, I mean, at one point, I think we were okay with losing him. We're sitting here kind of talking to ourselves, telling us how valuable he is and how much, if we can make it work, we do. So I would love to see it happen. Yeah, I would love, yeah, I'd love to see it happen, man, one way or the other, because I don't want to see Christian Wilkins play for another team. But I think Merrick first said it, and now you said it. I keep seeing New England. That makes me absolutely sick, man. Absolutely atrocious to think that he could end up with the Patriots. But like Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel continue to say, these guys have deserved to be free agents, right? So we'll see what other teams are willing to pay him, and hopefully Chris Grier's ready to pony up and pay him the same. And do we look into the income tax and things like that? I mean, isn't that something we always, the Dolphins, you don't have to pay any state taxes, this and that, a deal elsewhere might, so maybe that factors in a little bit. Maybe he wants to continue playing in Miami, but we'll see, man. Don't want to see Christian Wilkins leave.
I am a little fearful. Fan favorite. The dude's awesome. You want him on your team. And obviously we're going to try to talk circles into making it happen. But let's think about it this way, Josh. The final thing before we wrap up here. Chris Grier, I don't know how much you can believe it when an agent said or a general manager says that the agent said that it was a good offer, because that kind of just sounds like, okay, like, was it? He didn't accept it. Was it a good offer? So if the Dolphins, though, and Wilkins are only $2-3 million apart, like, I don't think that should be a game-breaking thing, because just one player I want to give you an example of. Ahead of the 2022 season, the Dolphins signed 7th-round pick Keon Crossan to a 3-year, $10 million deal. He was in the league since 2018. He was supposed to be a special teams pro. Josh, this is the value that Keon Crossan got paid by every team he's played for. Special teams ace Keon Crossan. Before I begin, tell me your favorite Keon Crossan memory as a member of the Miami Dolphins.
You can't have me doing this without having my Twitter up. There's got to be a pass breakup or something I really enjoyed by Keon Crossan.
Yeah, maybe there was like 7 defensive backs hurt and he was on the field. Josh, he spent a season with the Giants. His cap hit was $900,000. He spent a season with the Patriots. His cap hit was $500,000. He spent 2 seasons with the Texans. His cap hit was $1.3 million. He spent 2 seasons with the Miami Dolphins, one of them being entirely on IR, $6.2 million for Keon Crossan. You're telling me that we'd rather spend $2 million on Keon Crossan than just keep Wilkins around?
Our cornerbacks were down bad at times, and no disrespect to Keon Crossan, but God, man, what the hell was going on in that room when? Oh man, okay, yeah. So Keon Crossan and what Christian Wilkins, what you're already willing to pay him, yeah, I sign me up for that. My God, man, that sounds so terrible saying that out loud. That Keon Crossan.
Can you believe that? I was on Over the Cap today, and my eyes fell out of my head. I was like Velma on the ground trying to find them. $6.2 million.
That's like more than every running back in the running back room. Isn't that like what?
Devon Achane just averaged 7.5 yards per carry. Raheem Mostert led the league in rushing touchdowns, and Keon Crossan said, "Here, I'll take $6 million." I cannot believe that. So that is my final point on why I kind of feel like I might be swinging too far the other way of my bias of let's keep Christian Wilkins around. But you can't tell me that we're going to draw the line on the sand for $2 million to keep Keon Crossan around. You can't do that.
No, and I don't want to make it about Tua, but you give Tua his contract before all this?
We might have to save that for tomorrow, because I'd pay Tua first, but that's a very
we can
long
pay Tua first. Yeah.
So we'll be back tomorrow, guys. Kat will be joining us. We'll go through the Jerome Baker release. The Dolphins are currently, I think, $19 million over the cap with about a week to go. We'll talk a little more about Keon Crossan. We'll talk about the Dolphins deciding to sign a defensive tackle despite being $20 million over the cap. And hey, Jonnu Smith is in town to have a visit. So Joshua Houtz, it was great to be back with you for a little, we used to call them Fin Sliders. I don't know what we're going to call them, but a little short show here on another Dolphins podcast. But we will be back soon. But until then, fins up.
Fins up.
White.